From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. First, the headlines. U.S. tops 1 million COVID deaths. Trump wanted to shoot protesters, former Pentagon chief says. Protesters demonstrate outside Supreme Court over abortion rights. India falls in global press freedom ranking from 142 to 150. Nearly 200 million people faced acute hunger last year. The opera that tells the story of an enslaved Islamic scholar. And our top story tonight. The number of U.S. deaths from COVID-19 has surpassed 1 million, nearly a quarter of the way through year 3 of the pandemic. NBC News reported on Wednesday. Public health experts have long highlighted that the official numbers are lower than the true infection figures and death toll. CNN reported last month that only 7% of positive cases in the U.S. are detected, which means case rates are 14.5% higher than reported. That's according to the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington School of Medicine. Meanwhile, the New York Times is reporting that new infections have risen by 54% over a 14-day period, while hospitalization has increased by 19%. Former President Donald Trump suggested protesters denouncing police brutality in Washington, D.C. in 2020 should be shot, a former Pentagon official said. Axios reported on Monday that the revelation came from former Defense Secretary Mark Esper's memoir. The book titled A Sacred Oath, Memoirs of a Secretary of Defense During Extraordinary Times will be released May 10th. Trump asked if protesters outside the White House the first week of June 2020 could be shot in the legs or something. Esper describes the moment inside the Oval Office as surreal. He said Trump was red-faced and complaining loudly about the protests. On Friday, Black and Asian community leaders gathered in Los Angeles to mark 30 years since the city was engulfed in violence. Riots sparked in the wake of the acquittal of the 4 police officers for the brutal beating of Rodney King on April 29, 1992. The officers' acquittal came despite graphic footage of the assault on King, who was Black. The resulting violence left dozens dead and $1 billion worth of damage as anger flared across the multi-ethnic city following the verdicts. Laura King, CEO of the Rodney King Foundation, told the crowd that her father became synonymous with police brutality for some people. She added her father never advocated for hatred or violence and pleaded for peace as the city burned. On Tuesday, President Joe Biden called on U.S. Congress to approve more military aid for Ukraine after visiting a Lockheed Martin facility. Biden then headed to Troy, Alabama to visit the factory where 600 workers have the capacity to produce more than 2,000 Javelin anti-tank missiles per year. He applauded the facility for helping defend freedom and democracy itself in Ukraine. The U.S. has sent more than 5,000 Javelin missiles to Ukraine since the Russian forces invaded the country in February, according to the White House. Critics said Biden's visit to Lockheed Martin provides a clear picture of the president's current priorities. They said he is focused on war profiteering with the collapse of his domestic agenda, the Build Back Better Act and its anti-poverty and climate action provisions. On Monday, protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. to voice concerns as the court is poised to roll back half a century of abortion rights. The Supreme Court's draft ruling leaked on Monday could overturn the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision. That earlier ruling enshrined abortion rights across the country. The court has until the end of June to decide on whether to overturn Roe v. Wade. This has sparked much debate in the Muslim community. In international news, Ahmed Raza Jalali, an Iranian Swedish national sentenced to death for allegedly spying for Israel in Iran, will be executed by May 21st, according to media reports. Jalali also was accused of having a role in the killing of Iranian nuclear physicist, the Iranian Student News Agency said, citing sources. Jalali, a medical doctor and lecturer at the Karolinska Institute in the Swedish capital Stockholm, was arrested in Iran on April 2016. He allegedly provided information to the Israeli Foreign Intelligence Agency. His death sentence was upheld by the Iranian Supreme Court in 2017. The Swedish Foreign Ministry said it granted citizenship to Jalali, who has been imprisoned in Tehran since 2018. On Wednesday, France's General Inspectorate for the National Police opened an investigation into the beating of 2 women wearing headscarves by 3 officers. The beatings occurred April 14th in the town of Asnières in northern France, according to French news outlet Le Figaro. An initial complaint was filed by the women's lawyers Nabil Baudi on April 21st. An initial probe opened on April 28th. The women, aged 23 and 24, claimed that the officers slapped them for no reason while they were crossing Clichy Bridge. They said that a patrol car had flashed its lights at them as they crossed at a pedestrian crosswalk. The car then stopped suddenly in the middle of the lane before them, the women said to police. The officers got out of their vehicles and 2 of them slapped one of the women several times in the back and chest, calling her a dirty whore, they said. One officer attempted to rip off the headscarf of the other woman. Videos of the event has been circulated on social media. Bringing news about the state of press freedom around the globe after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps, I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut, and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness. When she regained, and in the morning and soldiers were themselves away, she ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day-long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free. They are not. Please stand up. Work with Burma Task Force and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS. Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
60 shots! No peace! No justice! No peace!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward. That lesson learned have brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. faithfully connected.
Assalamu alaikum. Open up your eyes.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
It's Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah, let's explore.
India's press freedom rankings fell from 133 in 2016 to 150 in 2021, out of 180 countries, according to Reporters Without Borders. The group published its 2022 World Press Freedom Index on May the 3rd. India ranked below Rwanda and Somalia. The World Press Freedom Index highlights degrees of freedom journalists, news organizations, and people have in each country. It also documents governments' efforts to respect such freedoms. The report noted violence against journalists, politically partisan media, and concentration of media ownership as threats to press freedom in India. Since 2014, India has been ruled by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and in the embodiment of the Hindu nationalist right, the report said. On Tuesday, a group of U.S. House lawmakers introduced a resolution naming countries that committed repressive and brutal actions against journalists. China, Russia, and Belarus made the list, which was released on World Press Freedom Day. China is one of the worst media environments in the world and seeks to curtail political speech inside and outside the country, per the resolution. That's according to the Committee to Protect Journalists' 2021 findings. Uyghur American Bahram Sintash said his father is among the journalists detained in China. Sintash of Virginia urged the U.S. government to speak up for Uyghur journalists arbitrarily detained and imprisoned by the Chinese authorities. 50 journalists are imprisoned in China, according to CPJ's report. Russia's revenues from the sale of oil and gas will reach $260 billion this year. That significantly exceeds the revenues of the previous 2 years due to a sharp increase in energy prices, Rystad energy analysts said. Tax revenues will increase significantly to more than $180 billion, despite an expected reduction in oil production in Russia this year. Skyrocketing gas prices in Europe and liquefied natural gas in Asia are expected to generate roughly $80 billion in revenues for Russia. Expected income from Russia's oil exports this year will be 45% and 181% higher than in 2021 and 2020, respectively, Rystad reported. Roughly $7 billion in military equipment was left behind and transferred to the deposed Afghan government after the U.S. troop withdrawal last August, a report says. The Pentagon won't be conducting any operations to retrieve or destroy the equipment, according to the congressionally mandated report released on Thursday. Defense Department spokesman, Army Major Robert Lodwick, told CNN that the $7.12 billion represented the former Afghan National Defense and Security Force equipment. He added that nearly all equipment used by U.S. military forces in Afghanistan was either retrograded or destroyed before troop withdrawal. 5 Soviet-era Mi-17 helicopters in Afghanistan were transferred to Ukraine, per the report. They had been in Eastern European country for repairs before the US withdrew from Afghanistan in August. Roughly 193 million people experienced acute food insecurity last year, according to a joint report by the European Union and the United Nations. The report, which was released on Wednesday, called it a record figure and warned the war in Ukraine will make the hunger crisis even worse in 2022. Acute food insecurity is defined as a severe lack of food, putting a person's life or livelihood in immediate danger. Its more serious form is famine, leading to starvation and death. The global report on food crises is compiled by the Food and Agricultural Organization, the World Food Programme, and the European Union. It has been monitoring food crises since 2016, when acute food insecurity reportedly affected 108 million people. An Arabic autobiography of Omar ibn Said, written during his enslavement in America, is the inspiration for a new opera production. Entitled Omar, it tells the story of Ibn Said, a 37-year-old Islamic scholar of Fulani descent who was sold into slavery. It followed Ibn Said's spiritual journey from Futa Toro, a desert area between present-day Mauritania and Senegal, through to enslavement in North Carolina. The production is set in 1807 after Britain passed the abolition of the Slave Trade Act, outlawing the British Atlantic slave trade. A year later, the United States outlawed importing slaves, but the domestic slave trade continued on its ports. Charleston, South Carolina was one such port where more than 100,000 West Africans were shipped. Among them was Omar ibn Said. Sheikh Omar bin Said died in 1864, 1 year before the end of the American Civil War and the abolition of chattel slavery. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid in Chicago. Just like you, I was moved by that Allahu Akbar lady. She stood her ground, fearful of none, for her hijab and for her education. Sisters and brothers, Indian Muslims are facing a genocide. India does not care for Muslim protesting, but it does care for the world opinion. Therefore, we must push the United Nations. The UN has a responsibility to protect. They must prevent genocide. Please sign this UN petition now. Get others to sign. It will help. Trust me, it will help. We need 1 million signatures, brothers and sisters. Please sign now.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad!
You okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. It's time for our in-depth analysis segment. Let's watch.
CAIR is saying that anti-Muslim discrimination and hate is on the rise. To discuss that with us is Edward Ahmed Mitchell, Deputy Director of CAIR National. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Imam. Good to see you. Ramadan Mubarak.
Ramadan Kareem, few days left.
Yes, mashallah.
Share with us, what are the salient features of this latest report from CAIR?
So yeah, again, thank you for having us, Imam. So for the better part of almost 30 years, CAIR has released an annual civil rights report to document and detail the type of discrimination complaints that our national office and our chapters have received over the prior year. The new report is called Still Suspect: The Impact of Structural Islamophobia. This report documents the complaints we received in 2021. Now, the headline, I think, of this is that we received a total of 6,720 complaints related to everything from immigration and travel complaints, law enforcement overreach complaints, employment discrimination, school incidents, prisoner rights, and then general complaints. Again, a total of 6,720. That's the largest number of complaints that CAIR has ever recorded. In the past 28 years, we have never received a larger number of complaints than that.
But does that account for CAIR becoming more efficient, or Muslims are filing more complaints as compared to the actual rise in crimes?
I think that does account for the big difference between, for example, 2001 and 2010 and 2021. Part of it is that there are more CAIR chapters now. The community is more engaged now, and so we're getting more complaints. But obviously, events have a big role to play in that. After 9/11, we saw a spike in hate crimes and discrimination that led to a rise in complaints to our office. The same thing after 2010, and of course, after the Trump era. The key thing to note is that the numbers that we got in 2021 are higher than the prior numbers. It's a 9% increase from the prior year. Now, there was no change in the number of CAIR chapters between that 1 year period, no change in our reporting becoming more efficient. So something happened that led to an almost 10% increase over a 1 year period. Now, the report details a few explanations for this. One is that between 2020 and 2021, there was a huge increase in complaints related to immigration and travel discrimination. That is largely potentially a result of people returning to travel as the pandemic subsided in 2021. More people flying, therefore more people running into anti-Muslim discrimination at the airport compared to 2020. So that's a possible explanation for why there was such a huge increase there. But some of the other numbers, though, it's not clear why there was an increase or a slight drop. It must, we believe, have to do with circumstances, that there is some anti-Muslim bigotry that is systemic in government policy and therefore persistent, no matter who's president, that type of bigotry, especially when it comes to law enforcement overreach, the watch list, the no-fly list, FBI interviews, that sort of thing is just persistent and seems to be increasing.
But Edward Mitchell, CAIR has been around for a while, and it has been fighting against the profiling and outreach, extraordinary police focus, as well as no-fly list and all of that. Why 20 years since 9/11, these things still continue to be present?
Yeah. Sadly, the national security state that developed in the years after 9/11 is a massive behemoth. It's almost like an ocean liner, and it's very hard to get an ocean liner to change direction. Now, the nice thing is that we have had some successes. The community, for example, I think successfully got the government to stop the NSEERS program, which targeted many innocent members of our community. Obviously, the Muslim ban was repealed. That's a good thing. And now the law is increasingly on our side. CAIR won a major courtroom victory against the watch list a few years ago. We're still fighting that battle right now. And we've been able to successfully get every single person who contacted us for help, and we filed a lawsuit to get them off the no-fly list. We've had a 100% success rate in getting innocent Muslims off the no-fly list once we file a lawsuit. So those are good things. Those are positive things, alhamdulillah. But the problem is that you have a very entrenched system, a system in place that, again, no matter who the president is, that system is still there. And so what it's going to require to change this is systemic change in government policy, and the government is very resistant to making those changes willingly. That's why we're in court fighting these things, and that takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes resources, and it takes some more victories in court.
Is the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, is the main entity which is cause of these issues with the Muslim community?
It's one of them, but the FBI is not part of DHS, and that's also a major contributor to this problem. For example, the watch list that originates with the FBI, the no-fly list. The FBI plays a huge role in who is on that list, the innocent people on that list. So it's Homeland Security, it's the FBI, it's even intelligence agencies that are then passing faulty information on to these agencies. So it's, when I say it's a behemoth, and it's an interconnected system, I really mean that. It is the national security state kind of run amok and overreaching. And again, that's not to say that everything they do is wrong, right? Yes, it's very important to keep the nation safe and protect people from legitimate threats, but we've seen too many instances of innocent people. People have never been charged with a crime, never convicted of anything, even children being put on these lists because, again, the system itself is faulty, and there's no due process to get someone off the list if they've been wrongfully put on one of these overbroad lists. So yeah, it's DHS, it's FBI, but it's the whole system.
Is there a way to know whose name is on the list? I mean, you cannot. There's no system you're saying to get off the list, but is there a way to know who is on the list except show up at the airport and told that way?
Exactly. So what's happening is that we have clients who come to us after experiencing the constant abuse at the airport. They're pulled aside for secondary screening, sniffed by dogs, their stuff is searched over and over again. That's just domestically. If they're traveling internationally, they're pulled aside for hours-long interview. They're asked invasive questions about their travels, their faith, their politics. Their phone is forcibly taken from them, and that happens over and over again. And so when CAIR sues, then we find out that they're on a list, and that's why they're being targeted. But short of filing a lawsuit or a complaint, there's no easy way to even know you're on the list except for you to experience this sort of abusive behavior, and that's a classic sign that you are on some sort of list. If you're at screening and the guy checking your passport looks down and says, I need you to go that way, chances are your name is showing up somewhere on some sort of government list, and often without good reason.
Now, considering Department of Homeland Security and Justice Department are the two main departments of the government which are cause or concern, is there a dialogue between CAIR and Department of Homeland Security?
Yes. In fact, thankfully, just a few weeks ago, we were able to reach out to the Department of Homeland Security after CBP, that is Customs and Border Protection, had engaged in abusive behavior towards a Muslim civic leader. And we expected they were going to engage in similar abusive behavior towards another Muslim leader who was flying back into the country after attending a similar event. We reached out to CBP to complain, and they actually ended up ensuring that second Muslim leader was not abused, was not targeted. And we're doing that sort of targeted action, reaching out to CBP when we can to help particular people. So yes, that dialogue does happen, is an open dialogue. But again, the system is what it is. Even if you've got good civil servants who want to do something different, the system has to change. And that requires, yes, advocacy, but it also requires a lawsuit. And so that's why we're in court, with multiple lawsuits against the system, because talking nice to people only gets you so far. At some point, you got to put your foot down and drag someone into court to get some action.
That's very good. But you mentioned a case for which there was some communication with DHS. But what about entering into conversation with the policymakers that these are the systemic problems which we have while you have a lawsuit? Stick and carrot, carrot being a dialogue, a stick being a lawsuit.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have done that, and we are doing that. But again, those changes have not happened yet, and therefore we sue. So when President Biden took office, for example, the U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations released their 100-day agenda for the Biden administration and listed a number of policies that we thought the administration should adopt. And that included reining in the national security state and some of this overreach. Now, some of the things in that agenda, the president did adopt, and we thank him for that. But many of those things, including the systemic things that need to be changed, have not been changed. And we can't sit around waiting that they're going to do the right thing. We've got to go into action. And that's why we're in court. But at the same time, yes, those policy discussions are occurring. We're advocating for those, but we're not holding our breath.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Edward Ahmed Mitchell, Deputy Director of CAIR National.
Thank you, Imam.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much. That's all from our Washington studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.